Um, but I wanted to talk about also the press. And here's where it gets really interesting. Poland, you'll recall, was arguably the first major crack in the Soviet bloc countries back during the era of Gorbachev, where you had, supported by the Pope, in fact, John Paul II, as I recall, the former Karol Wojak, the Polish Pope. You had Lech Walesa with Solidarność, right? Solidarity. I believe they were either the steel workers union or the shipping union, or maybe it was a combination of both, the equivalent of kind of the longshoremen. But it was a union that was around the shipyards, in any case, in Gdansk in Poland. And they eventually took over the country, and turned it into a democratic republic. Well, the far-right party, has taken over Poland. Sort of like a far-right vice president and president just took over preparing for 4 or 5 weeks to take over the United States. Mike Pence is arguably one of the most hard-right politicians in the United States, and Donald Trump is dancing with all these guys. And this was my point about Social Security. I mean, he's said all these things to get himself elected. Is he going to go along with his own political party now and cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? I'm betting he will. I'm betting he just said whatever he had to say to get elected, but we'll see. But in any case, to the press, there is massive demonstrations. Protests flared across Poland. This is from the Financial Times, a piece by Neil Buckley in London and Evan Huber in Warsaw. Protests flared across Poland on Saturday over planned restrictions on media access to parliament that opponents say is the latest assault on press freedom by the country's right-wing law and justice government. What has become our Republican Party is in Poland called the Law and Justice, right? Law and order. Basically, that's what they're calling their party, law and order. 5,000 people gathered outside the presidential palace in Warsaw. They marched to the parliament. Rallies are taking place in cities all over Poland. Now, what is it that triggered these things? The Speaker of Poland's lower house banned TV recording and photography inside the parliament building. In other words, they just did in Poland what our Supreme Court does every single day that they're in session. You can't have cameras in here. You can't have microphones in here. Excuse me. Yeah, you can't. I'm sorry. You can't have TV cameras, and you can't take pictures. That's the way it is in the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, they just did that with the Polish legislature, and the Poles are freaking out. His plans would also reduce the number of accredited journalists and confine reporters to an official media center where politicians would give briefings, and reporters would no longer be able to mingle with members of parliament in the parliament building. Well, they can't, and in the United States, reporters can't mingle in the Capitol building with, well, to some extent, some can, I suppose. But in any case, this, what I find interesting about this is that at the same time in Poland, people are literally coming out in the streets because the freedom of the press is being eroded, so that the press doesn't have access to the leadership of Poland any longer. They're basically, they're going to be making decisions in dark rooms with no cameras. At the same time, over the weekend, Donald Trump was down at Mar-a-Lago. He has not held a press conference in, 145 days? He was supposed to have one last Thursday, and he didn't. And instead, he threw a cocktail party at Mar-a-Lago. And there's this group of reporters who follow him wherever he goes, even if he won't talk to them. And he invited them. He said, if you want to keep it entirely off the record, do not report anything that's said, you're welcome to come to the cocktail party. And the reporters said, oh, great, we can come to a cocktail party with you? Of course, we'll put tape over our mouths and over our ears and over our eyes. No problem. Just bring on the mimosas and the caviar. And I mean, this is crazy. Mother Jones's editor-in-chief Clara Jeffrey tweeted Sunday night in response to a photo of Trump surrounded by reporters giving a thumbs up. This is from an article by Michael Calderon at Huffington Post. She tweeted, "Shameful." Tim Grieve, McClatchy's vice president, said, "Hard to imagine any possible justification for agreeing to an off-the-record cocktail party with the president-elect." So Trump is moving us down this road that Poland is going down. The right-wing government in Poland, democratically elected, but a right-wing government. And in the United States, a right-wing president, I think. I mean, we really, you know, we have yet to find out if Donald Trump has any core values at all outside of, you know, hey, look at me. Aren't I great? You know, but, and by the way, somebody should tell Alec Baldwin that when he does Trump imitations, his tie needs to be 6 inches longer. Trump wears his tie 6 inches below his belt to compensate for something, you know. And, you know, somebody should tell Alec Baldwin. Anyway, we'll be right back.